Frameshift drive charging. 4, 3, 2, 1. Engage. Surface scan complete.
So I'll draw about here, I think. That should be good. Yeah, getting hot on the stream. Good to see. And Widow. Sorry, I just noticed a Widowmaker 700. All right, that's a good name. I like that one. All right. Swing this around like this.
Surface scanned by 50%.
Good, we're getting some
Surface scan complete.
Oh. Fantastic. All right. So we'll run around this way. It should be good. I don't know if I missed that or not.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Anyway. B.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
C. And D will be the next one, but obviously save that for later.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%.
Oh, God, don't you hate when you get that itchy nose? Yeah.
Surface scan complete. scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
And
Hull integrity compromised. Surface scanned by 50%. Frameshift drive charging. 4, 3, 2, 1. Surface scan complete. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Yes, next. Good. Yep.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Yeah. F would be the next one.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Oh, hello. That's up next, okay. It's always great when you think you've explored it all. But, oh, damn, that's a beautiful gas giant. Damn, look at that. 2010 4. Yeah, okay, so it's up to here now. Alright, cool. And hey, we got 3 on the stream. Great to see. Hope you're enjoying the exploration that we're doing. Right, so we just explore space. Oh, I've already mapped it. Oh, okay. Huh. Off to an unexplored sector of the map. Then I didn't know that I'd already explored that one. By the look of it, it has rims too. Alright. A will be the next one.
Surface scan complete. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Ready to be.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Hey, 4 on the stream. Great to see you guys. Pardon me. I said, I hope you're having fun watching wherever you're watching from. I know I'm having fun. I don't love this game. It's I see this as a palate cleanser to GTA 5, where there's total non-stop anarchy in GTA 5 to here in Elite Dangerous, where there's just is zen, especially when you're out exploring like I am. Like, when there's no one else around, it's just you and your ship.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
To C and then D. And D, yep. I'm surprised that no one's, they explored and mapped the other, planets in this system. So I don't know why they haven't done this. But, well, hey, more for me. That's it. I get my name on these. So.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
G, and then on to E.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
And F, and then G. Beautiful. And that should be this whole system. Yeah. That, yes, yes.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
And then G.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
I think that's the galaxy. I think that's this system. Oh, wait, hang on. There's. Take about 10 probes to do it, huh? Alright. Hey, 4 on the stream. How are you guys? Oh, okay. There's still something else unexplored out there.
System scan complete.
Right, there we go. Oh, okay, this is okay, beautiful. Right. Now I can move on.
Surface scanned by 50%. Camshaft drive charging.
All right. Oh, look at that. Oh, I love a good group of unexplored. All right, we got 6 on the stream. Great to see, guys. How are you? No, let's just get this fuel scoop done and then we can commence our exploring.
Fuel scooping complete.
No, it's already been discovered and mapped, but not by me. Next over to that unexplored part of the world. Oops, hang on, wait. Okay. All right, let's
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Yeah, got myself a good looking ship right here. And go next. Oh, and I can scoop this one too. Cool. Which I'll probably need to after the travel. Well, you see it there, 155,000 light seconds. Oh, no one discovered or mapped it? Alright.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
What? So I just completely ignored this this planet, but okay. fuzzy body and with rings too.
Surface scan complete. Surface scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Oh, another ringed planet. And again, someone who's, discovered a map to this one can't be asked to discover a map to this one. Oh, hey, more credits for me. All right, well, we're waiting for that one. The codex I want? Yes, it is. Knowledge base, because I'm just gonna. Okay. Add to playlist. Empire, the Federation. The Alliance. Thargoids. Guardians. corporations. Colonia, the Dark Wheel, and Raxler.
The Empire. Introduction. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In
Surface scan complete.
apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. Shakespeare, Hamlet.
When our ancestors departed Earth, they asked themselves, which of our achievements represents the best of humanity, that we may bring it with us to illumine the darkness? The Federation, embroiled in a world of contracts and petty bickering, chose their constitution. They placed their trust not in man himself, but in an imperfect work of man. But my ancestor, your first emperor, was wiser. He knew that the best achievement of humanity was humanity itself. There was more wisdom in a single nucleotide of his noble DNA than in all the Federation's written texts. That same wisdom still guides us now. We need no dusty documents to assert our right. We are human, born to rule. And the universe awaits the firm hand of our governance.
Emperor Trascan Duval II. Undelivered draft speech written immediately before his sudden and unexplained death. The Empire, while younger than the Federation, is easily the equal of its historic rival in terms of scale and resources. The key social distinction between the two powers is that slavery in the Empire is legal, a fact that has remained a source of controversy since its inception, both within the Empire and without. Some observers have pointed out, however, that conditions for those at the lowest levels of federal society are far worse than those experienced by imperial slaves. The popular image of the Empire is one of opulence, but while pomp and pageantry may be the norm in the core imperial systems, elsewhere in imperial space, one can find myriad examples of deprivation and squalor. Indeed,
Surface scanned by 50%.
the Empire encompasses many striking contrasts. Sophisticated technology exists alongside an ancient Roman system of government, and the affluence of the core worlds depends on often unregulated slave labor in the wretched outer colonies. Ruthless industrial efficiency and low taxation has made the Empire rich and mighty. The hierarchy of imperial society is rigid, but a citizen can always rise through the ranks if he or she becomes wealthy enough and makes the right connections. Even a slave
There you
could,
go.
in theory, become a senator.
Surface scan complete.
The Empire. History. The Achenar colony was founded. In the mid-23rd century, wealthy entrepreneur Marlene Duval was so frustrated with the federal government that she founded an independent colony of her own in the Achenar system, chosen for its remoteness. When Marlene was killed shortly afterwards in a flyer accident, her brother Henson Duval took over as ruler. Henson Duval, the Emperor. Duval immediately abolished the fledgling democracy that Marlene had set up, and in its place, he established a system modelled on ancient Rome. He was now emperor, and his closest allies were his senators. Any colonists who might have objected were forced into silent compliance with Duval's vision, such were his wealth and power. It was also widely believed that Marlin de Val, like Remus in ancient Rome, had been killed by her own brother. Nobody dared to speak out. The Mudlark extinction. The colonists were aware that the planet they had settled, Achenar 6D, had indigenous life. But at first, it wasn't appreciated that this included a sentient species, nicknamed the Mudlarks after they were observed digging through riverbank mud in search of food. Although the Mudlarks were at the pre-agricultural stage of development, they appear to have developed the beginnings of language. They also created crude forms in molded clay, with no obvious practical purpose, possibly indicating a nascent artistic culture. The Mudlarks proved fatally vulnerable to the bacteria carried by the colonists, and within a few decades of the colony's founding, the species was extinct. Rumours subsequently emerged that Henson de Val had purposefully removed all traces of the Mudlarks, partly in fear of federal reprisal, and partly to ensure that his development plans would not be hindered by ecological constraints. The Federation attempted to reclaim Achenar. When the federal government heard rumours that de Val's colony had recklessly caused the destruction of a sentient indigenous species, they decided on military intervention. The Imperial ships beat back the federal attackers, who were unable to establish a beachhead among the airless outer worlds, and struggled to maintain supply lines so far from Earth. The federal forces eventually fell back and entrenched in the Beta Hydri system. Skirmishes with Imperial ships continued for the next 50 years, but these were unable to prevent de Val from expanding the Empire to many other worlds. The Age of Expansion. After hostilities with the Federation ceased, the Empire entered a century of growth, annexing many new systems and persuading others to join. It spent the following 2 centuries consolidating its new territory, appointing colonial administrators from among the noble houses of Achenar. The Empire. Society. An ancient Roman model. The Empire works on a clean system. Society is divided into tiers: Emperor, Senators, Patrons, Clients, and then Citizens, with slaves below these. Groups of patrons pledge their support to a given senator, offering military service, tax revenue, and the right to wield the patrons' votes in the Senate on their behalf. In return, the patrons are granted a measure of protection and material security, as well as having their interests represented in the Imperial Senate. Senators are responsible for deciding tax rates and welfare systems for their patrons, meaning that the lower
Surface scan complete.
Senator's tax rates, the more patrons he is likely to attract. This is far from being a patron's only concern, however. Loyalty over time, ideological compatibility, family connections, and discreet private deals can all play a part in deciding which senator to back. The system extends downward through the tiers in a similar fashion, with clients pledging themselves to given patrons, and citizens pledging themselves to given clients. The votes held by the patrons actually comprise the total votes of all the clients pledged to them. Similarly, the votes held by those clients comprise the total votes of their pledged citizens. Patrons are therefore capable of investing variable degrees of power in their chosen senators, with the result that some senators are more powerful than others. Senators are responsible for those below them, meaning that everyone has a form of social security, at least in theory. Indeed, many senators take pride in the security they offer their citizens. Some have even been known to drain material wealth from small independent worlds and pump it back into the capital economy, allowing them to reduce citizens' taxes and giving their own popularity a considerable boost. Patrons are free to withdraw their patronage from their chosen senator, placing the onus on the senator to represent them satisfactorily or face a loss of voting power. Rigid stratification. The division between social classes is formal, unambiguous, and strict. But there is a clear path to advancement. A person can pay a fee and petition for admittance to the rank above. In this way, slaves can become citizens too. The law is not the same for all. Senators have a responsibility to enforce the law, and they must obey the emperor's decree, but are otherwise above the law. A senator can even carry out executions personally with little, if any, fear of consequence. The Empire. Military. The Imperial Navy. Maintaining a modernized navy has always been a top priority for the Empire. The ever-present threat posed by the Federation has driven previous emperors to empty the coffers again and again, for fear of being outstripped in the arms race. More recently, funding has come from wealthy individual senators, many of whom are all too eager to gain influence within the
Oh boy.
Integrity compromised.
Indeed, there has been claimed that devastating planetary mining has been carried out in order to further this cause. The Facisi system
while I'm here.
is arguably the most significant Imperial naval base. Many officers are housed on the world of Topaz, while Peter's Wreck is home to the training centers. As well as the battle fleets, the Imperial Navy maintains a subdivision dedicated to exploring the fringes of known space. The Emperor's Own. Genetic engineering is not officially tolerated
Scan detected.
in the Empire, but it does sometimes take place. One notable example is the Emperor's Own, a group of genetically engineered super soldiers deployed during the shock invasion of Mansfield Colony in the Leadler system in 2959. They proved brutally efficient, overrunning the Federal defenses in a mere 2 hours and inflicting a rare defeat upon a Federal Gurkha regiment. The Empire. Culture and values. The human body represents perfection. This belief, once held with near religious intensity, still forms the bedrock of the Empire's culture and morals. Genetic modification is frowned upon, but a degree of genetic correction is known to take place, supposedly to correct defects such as vulnerability to certain diseases. The belief in the sanctity of the human body originates with the first emperor, Henson de Val. While he did not claim to be literally descended from the gods in the manner of Roman emperors of old, he declared that his own image was the paradigm to which others ought to aspire. Households across the empire were required to display a statue or bust of the emperor in a place of honor. Imperial citizens are
how is
therefore
this?
expected to shun habits that corrupt or defile the human body, such as excessive indulgence in narcotics. The ownership of slaves, by contrast, is tolerated in the same way that the ownership of any beautiful work of art is tolerated. Mistreatment of slaves is thus akin to vandalism. Keeping one's own body in peak condition and adorning it with jewels and expensive clothes is not vanity, but duty, and owning well character. The Emperor's word is supreme. The Emperor's
Target cargo dropped.
successor is decided by the Senate, although the de Val dynasty has such a strong power base that the imperial throne has only ever been occupied by members of that bloodline. For generations, genetic selection ensured that the Emperor's heir would be male, and the current ruler, Orissa Lavinie de Val, is the first woman to hold the throne. Marlene de Val is sometimes described as the Empire's first female ruler, but this
Target cargo dropped.
is incorrect. The colony she founded was a democracy. Honor is everything. The value placed on honor is a constant throughout all tiers of imperial society.
No idea what I'm seeing right now. This is pretty cool.
Means, including leaving debts unpaid, failing to respect a superior or provide for a dependent, breaking a solemn vow, conducting combat with cowardly weapons such as nerve gas, and defiling one's own body. Slavery is acceptable, but slaves must be well treated. In the Empire, it is not uncommon for the poor and disenfranchised to sign up for a period of military service in exchange for a small sum of money. A similar logic applies to imperial slavery, to the extent that someone might sell themselves into slavery to clear a debt and restore their honor. Selling oneself into slavery is a straightforward legal process and results in a guaranteed sum of money for one's family. So it is a popular option for the desperate. In practice,
All
however,
right. So now we're
many
deep in
find
the
that it takes
asteroid,
much longer
deep in
than
the
expected
not the
to
asteroid
clear
belt.
their
Sorry.
debts. People are also
In
forced
the
into
rings of
slavery
this
against
planet.
their will. Sometimes a senator will sentence a person of lower rank to be stripped of citizenship and designated as a slave. But it is more common to impose a fine of such magnitude that the citizen has no recourse but to sell his or herself into slavery.
Wow.
Slaves may also be taken prisoner following a conflict, abducted from their home, or even captured in a hijacking. While trading slaves is lawful everywhere in the Empire, except on Emerald, taking new slaves outside of wartime is illegal without the blessing of a senator. The Empire. Diplomatic relations. The Federation. Resentment of the Federation runs deep in the Empire. The superpower is remembered as an oppressive,
Scan detected.
interfering force that hypocritically avoids inflicting the slightest harm on non-human life, but thinks nothing of forcibly imposing its values on its fellow humans, and lacking the freedoms and social customs that the Empire values so dearly. While open hostility has frequently been the case in the past, the current situation is one of grudging coexistence beneath which mistrust simmers. Despite this antipathy, the Empire cooperated with the Federation in a series of joint initiatives against the Thargoids in the early 3300s. The Alliance. When the Alliance was founded in 3230, following a bitter conflict with the Empire and the Federation, multiple systems defected to it from both superpowers. To the surprise of many, the Empire took very little further retributive action, partly because of the ill health of the Emperor of the time, and partly due to a belief that the defecting systems would return to their
Wow.
natural home
This thing is
sooner or
beautiful.
later. The Empire's current attitude to the Alliance is one of studied contempt. To recognize it as a threat would be too much like showing respect. Internal politics. Unsurprisingly for a society so concerned with rank and influence,
All right. Anyway.
the Empire contains a multitude of feuding power blocks. In particular, there is a good deal of bad blood between the various noble houses, whose values range from hardcore traditionalist to staunch reformist. The Imperial Senate is no longer as overshadowed by the Emperor as it once was, and has gained sufficient strength to act as a counterbalance to the Emperor's
Frameshift drive charging.
political will. The individual character
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
of the Emperor still determines the Empire's overall direction, however, and the suggestion that the Empire should evolve out of its old ways has proven deeply divisive. The Federation. Introduction. For I dipped into the future, far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. Saw the heavens fill with commerce, argosies of magic sails, pilots of the purple twilight, dropping down with costly bales, till the war drum throbbed no longer, and the battle flags were furled in the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the World. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Locksley Hall, 1835.
How then to attempt the impossible task of summing up the Federation? We are the ones who draw the lines. Our forefathers, who lived through the bitter anguish of global wars, drew a line under them and declared, no more. We enshrined the rights of all citizens in our Constitution, underlined them, and signed. We plotted the lines that first linked the star systems, bringing humanity to the shores of new worlds, opening the way to interstellar trade.
Oh, it's already mapped, okay.
And when humanity itself, in the exuberance of youth,
All right.
threatened the delicate balance of alien life, again, we drew a line. Thus far let us lawfully tread, and no further.
Isaac Gellin, Federation President. Inaugural Speech, 2862. The Federation is the oldest of the galaxy's three superpowers, a vast geopolitical entity reaching out from the core system of Sol and encompassing a broad socio-economic spectrum. Among the myriad federal star systems, one can find extraordinary wealth, crushing poverty, and everything in between. By contrast with the Empire, which offers a social safety net in the form of state-sanctioned slavery, the poorest members of federal society have no safeguards and no way out. For them, life on the graffiti-stained streets is inescapable, and the gulf between their lives and those of the super-rich could not be more insurmountable. At its best, the Federation embodies the values of its founding nations: democracy, industry, and liberty. But federal society can also be competitive and unforgiving. Corporations wield too much power, politicians are often corrupt, and a sink-or-swim ethos prevails. The Federation. Nation of World War III, the United States of the Americas rose to become the planet's dominant nation. Over the following years, it gradually brought the other nations of the world under its aegis. Called at first the Federation of the USA, the expanding democracy was soon given the less exclusive title of the Federation. Humanity reached for the stars. When faster-than-light travel became a reality in the 22nd century, several terrestrial corporations competed fiercely to establish the first human colony in a new star system. Tau Ceti was the first system to be colonized, followed by Delta Pavonis, Beta Hydria, and Altair. In their wake, there followed a wild scramble of pioneering expeditions and colonial ventures. The first colony rebelled. The year 2161 saw a dispute between the colony of Tau Ceti III and the Federation Authority, centered on the colonists' repeated refusal to limit the damage they were inflicting on the alien ecosystem. Earth dispatched a fleet with orders to revoke the colony's charter. The colony responded by declaring independence. A military stalemate led to grudging compromise, and the Federal Accord resulted, granting the system rights and representation, along with concomitant duties. The Federation, born on Earth, was now an association of star systems. The Birthright Wars gave corporations preferential treatment. Starting in 2621, a group of corporations subjected
Surface scanned by 50%.
the federal government to over a century of unrelenting pressure. They demanded the right to buy up underexploited colonial land from its hereditary owners. Under the terms of the original charters, the land belonged to the colonists and their descendants, regardless of their ability to mine, farm, or otherwise exploit it, meaning that immense resources were lying
Surface scan complete.
untapped. The corporations argued that with the machinery, workforce, and fleets at their disposal, they could tap those resources. The Federation would be enriched, the original owners would be compensated, and everyone would be satisfied. The Federation bowed to pressure and allowed compulsory purchase of the family's land, albeit for far less than the expected sums. Outrage, rebellion, and in one case, the defiant resettlement of an entire colony resulted. The Federation's detractors often point to this dark episode as indicative of its true nature, a mere administrative puppet held to the will of rapacious corporations. The Federation. Society. A federated democracy. The Federation's legislative body is made up of congressmen elected to represent their system or state. Apart from the oldest core systems such as Sol, which encompasses multiple states, each star system within the Federation is considered a single state. New colonies do not qualify for full Federation membership until and unless they fulfill the development objectives set down for them. With self-reliance comes representation. The federal government has its seat on Mars, which was terraformed in 2286. Congress was moved there from Earth in the early 3rd millennium. The executive branch is headed by an elected president with a fixed 8-year term. Constitutional rights obtain. The sovereign rights of all individuals are enshrined in the Constitution, which is a modified and streamlined version of the US Constitution, originally codified in the 18th century. The right to liberty underscores the absolute ban on slavery within the Federation and is a point of contention with the Empire. Corporate interests dominate. Although the Federation is loudly and proudly democratic, corporations still exercise tremendous influence over the democratic process, shaping citizens' choices through celebrity endorsement, lobbying, and occasionally outright corruption. The government is notoriously reluctant to curb corporate activity. The typical question in Congress is not whether a given policy will favor corporate interests, but which ones it will favor. Competition between corporations for Congress support can lead to a deadlock in the government. The Federation. Military. The Federal Navy. The Federation has maintained a battle fleet since the days of the first federal colony, which was established in the Tau Ceti system. Its official mandate is to protect shipping and defend the borders of federal space, but it has also frequently been deployed against the Federation's own rebellious citizens. At first, the Federation's member systems were
Surface scan complete.
required to contribute the required ships, making the mustering process a cumbersome one. But following the Birthright Wars, corporations were chartered to produce centralized fleets, which made for a
Surface scan complete.
a more efficient system. The naval shipyards and training academy were originally based in the Anlave system, but the academy has since been moved to the custom world of Navy Central in Eta Cassiopeia. The Navy benefited from massive investment following the forced sell-off of colonial land in the Birthright Wars, during which it was wielded against the colonists in a bitterly resented move. When the Thargoids were first encountered in 2849, the Navy
Surface scanned by 50%.
was boosted once again in fear of the alien threat, and a further bolstering followed in 2867, in the aftermath of what were believed to be Thargoid attacks. Governor Raul Santorini championed heavy cuts to the Navy budget in 3022, which were not reversed until President Varian Scott came to power in 3144. Scott talked up the Thargoid threat, again increasing funding to the Navy and removing the requirement for military actions to be approved by congressional vote. Land forces. In addition to the rank and file, the Federation still enjoys the loyal service of special military divisions, such as the Gurkha Regiment, who have served since the days of Earth. Keeping up long-standing traditions such as this is an important link to the past for federal citizens. The Federation. Culture and values. If you want to eat, you have to work. The Federation
Surface scan complete.
has no room for freeloaders. It has nurtured the core frontier values of self-reliance and entrepreneurship since its inception, and respects the self-made citizen. This insistence upon paying your way and pulling your weight also applied, notoriously, to the process whereby new colonies were established. Until a given colony was able to fulfill the development goals set down for it by the Federation, it could only ever be a dependency with no voice of its own. Given that the Federation's assigned goals
anytime, man.
wildly from one colony
I was
to the
happy to.
next, this requirement frequently chafed with the colonists. While the Federation maintained that it was simply exercising flexibility, since no two worlds were the same,
Don't suppose I can get
some
a super
colonies
chat
were
off you?
tempted away to the Empire by the promise of being recognized as sovereign without having to jump through arbitrary hoops.
Or a membership.
Corporations took
Super chat and a
humanity into
membership?
space. The Federation has never forgotten the role played by private enterprise in the initial migration from Earth. Corporations enjoy substantial freedom and influence under the Federation, so much so that it often seems they are the powers truly running the show. Federal citizens can be as passionately loyal to their corporations as they would be to a family or clan group, and it is common for successive generations of a given family to serve the same corporation. harvest the limitless riches of
Surface scan by 50%. Surface scan complete.
but respect non-human life. The Federation and the Empire
B.
have hugely differing views on the primacy of humanity in the cosmos. While the Federation insists that its colonies treat indigenous non-human life with care, the Empire typically takes a more human-centric approach. This attitude has allowed the Empire to poach several developing Federation colonies who felt themselves hamstrung by ecological regulations. Wealth
And we got
is
7
freedom.
on the stream too. Beautiful.
Federal citizens actively embrace corporate culture, expressing their identity through brand choices and media consumption. The Federation. Diplomatic relations. The Empire. In 2292, a group of colonists established a settlement on Achenar 6D, chosen for its remoteness. The original intent was merely to live free from interference, but autocrat Henson Duval rapidly took control of the colony and had himself proclaimed emperor. The Federation attempted military reprisals, partly due to the nascent empire's insistence on independence, but faced a harder fight than they had expected and were held at bay. Over the next 50 years, the empire expanded to many other worlds. The Federation's relationship with the empire is one of entrenched mistrust, stemming from irreconcilable ideological differences, mollified somewhat by the corporations, which have a presence in both territories, and thus act as a stabilizing influence. Outright hostilities between the powers, when they occur at all, are usually conducted.
Surface scan by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Proxy forces. The Alliance. In 3228, the federally aligned corporations supplying the Alliance
Oh
system
shit, 9 on the
attempted to
stream.
raise their prices, leading to a
That's
citizen
a
rebellion.
lot of
Several
people for me.
independent systems
How you
assisted
doing,
the
guys?
rebels. Neither galactic superpower was able to suppress the revolt. The Empire was too far away to intervene effectively, whereas the Federation was hampered by unexpected public sympathy for the rebels. The Alliance of Independent Systems,
Yeah, with 9 on the stream. How are we?
3230, drew in new members over the next
Yeah, see, we
20
get a good-
years.
good amount of people
Some
watching.
were already independent, while others defected from the Federation or Empire. In order to keep more worlds from defecting, the Federation was forced to reform the process, whereby colonies could achieve full federal membership. So far, it has only managed to slow the loss of worlds to the Alliance, and has yet to tempt any back. The Alliance. Introduction. Rise, like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth, like dew which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. Percy Bysshe Shelley, The Mask of Anarchy, 1819.
I've read your speech a dozen times, Nick. We can't use it. Sure, we could sound off about self-rule and freedom from tyranny and the dignity of the working man/woman. And the young hotheads would lap it up like they always do. I'm not saying we don't need that stuff. But we mustn't forget it.
Surface scan by 50%. Surface scan complete.
Marketing. A shiny wrapper. It's not enough. If we're going to make the Alliance of Independent Systems happen, we need more than tub-thumping speeches from a
D.
war hero. We need to show our people that the damn thing can work. I want spending plans, dividend forecasts, surveyors' reports. I want data so dry you don't need to believe in it. The people are tired and heartsick. They've been sold dreams too many times by both sides, so let's not try to sell them anymore. It's time to wake up.
Private communique from Meredith Argent to Mick Turner, founders of the Alliance. The Alliance is the youngest of the galaxy's 3 superpowers, and is perhaps best understood in terms of what it chooses not to be. It rejects both the extreme capitalism of the Federation and the rigid hierarchy of the Empire, choosing instead a third way of voluntary association for mutual benefit. The desire for freedom from interference, both from external threats and internal bureaucracy, was the key motivation behind the Alliance's founding and is enshrined in its Articles of Association. The governments of the member systems are given as much autonomy to create their own laws and administer their own affairs as possible. The right to political self-determination and cultural self-expression are essential to the Alliance, but it remains to be seen whether the ultimate result will be stable harmony or a cacophony of dissenting voices. Every Alliance member knows that alliances have been made before, many times over, only to collapse.
Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete.
The Alliance. History. Alioth was colonized. The crucible in which the Alliance was forged was Alioth, a system so rich in gas and mineral resources that early surveyors considered it a stellar El Dorado. When the Federation established its first colony on Alioth 5b in 2452, they gave the planet the less grandiose name of Fruit, as
Pardon me.
deposits lay in the loamy soils as abundantly as raisins in cake. Later, commentators would reflect, bitterly, that the world was well named because everyone wanted a piece. A conflict over mining rights drew in the superpowers. Alioth's prosperity soon attracted corporations eager to support the developing system in exchange for a share of the profits. A dispute over rights quickly escalated into an armed conflict, prompting the Empire to dispatch a military force, ostensibly for the colonists' protection. The Federation also sent ships, but theirs were a response to the corporation's plea for aid. Unable to directly engage the Federal ships without sparking a war, the Empire covertly encouraged the Alioth colonists to renounce the Federation and accept Imperial protection, thus freeing the Empire to engage with the occupying Federal forces in sympathy with the will of the people. This marked the first of many incidents in which the people of Alioth were used to advance the agenda of another power. Federation-sponsored insurrection. In 2530, the Federation set out to undermine Imperial control of Alioth by exploiting local resentment of the governor.
Surface scan by 50%.
They
Surface scan complete.
covertly supported acts of protest and petty vandalism. Then, when the inevitable Imperial crackdown followed, stoked the fires of social unrest. A terrorist movement called the Cakers emerged, and the atrocities
Mapped
escalated.
it, yes. Mapped
The
it,
years that
yes.
followed saw a protracted
Yes.
and degrading series of proxy wars and cynical propaganda campaigns as the federal, imperial, and corporate powers all contended for Alioth. The system made an abortive attempt to establish its independence in 2617, resulting in a short-lived cooperation between the Empire and the Federation, neither of which were willing to allow this. The Revolution. In the early 4th millennium, both the Federation and the Empire had a presence in the Alioth system. Fruitcake, now known as Gordonworld, was a federal protectorate, while the Empire had earlier conducted terraforming experiments on the world of New California and also held gas mining platforms in the system. The federal corporations supplying New California had raised the prices of their goods several times in the previous years, and when they imposed yet another price hike, the planet's inhabitants revolted. In the insurrection that followed, rebels commandeered any available ships and headed out to the gas mining platforms, where they attacked the outpost's corporate employees. Alarmed, the Empire and the Federation dispatched ships to put down the rebellion, but were beaten back by a hastily assembled force made up of fighters from Alioth and, crucially, volunteers from nearby independent systems. Neither the Empire nor the Federation were able to gain a foothold, and eventually both forces had to withdraw. The Empire faced too many logistical problems fighting so far from home, while the Federation's efforts were under
Surface scan by 50%.
by public sympathy
Surface scan complete.
for the rebels. An alliance was brokered. The victory in Alioth had proven that independent systems working together could hold their own against the superpowers. It fell to pilot Mick Turner and scientist Meredith Argent to ride the wave of public spirit and propose a permanent alliance under whose aegis independent systems could enjoy freedom from imperial and federal interference. The alliance was founded in 3230, and in the next 2 decades, it expanded its membership to more than 20 systems, some defecting from the Federation and the Empire, others pledging as independents. The Alliance. Society. Many worlds, few rules, no overlords. The Alliance's Articles of Membership are designed to unite the member systems with strong, straightforward bonds that allow as much self-determination as possible. Membership guarantees mutual prosperity through guaranteed free trade and security through the Alliance Defense Force, while leaving much of the business of government to the individual members. The Alliance Assembly acts as a central arbitration committee, helping to settle disputes between member systems. It also oversees formal arrangements between members, such as treaties, research goals, and mutually agreed policies. As no one system can be allowed to carry more weight than another, the Assembly frequently finds itself bogged down in endless back-and-forth negotiations. Getting them to agree on anything is a task often compared to herding linglangs, notoriously ill-tempered carnivores from the Achenar system. A body of civil servants who remain uninvolved in politics handle most of the day-to-day administrative work that enables the Alliance to function. Conditional autonomy for member systems. Alliance members are required to subscribe to and uphold a code of human rights, and to have a democratically elected government. Citizens of any member state have a right of freedom of movement and residence within any other member state. Furthermore, all member systems are obliged to give immediate military assistance to any fellow member when necessary. The Alliance means its own navy. All members are required to commit ships and crew to the Alliance Defense Force. This rapid response group usually remains within Alliance space, and its tasks vary from providing a beleaguered system with military assistance to evacuating settlements hit by natural disaster. A 6-member Council of Admirals oversees the Alliance Defense Force. It is accountable to the Assembly, but does not require its approval before taking action. This freedom of decision-making prevents urgent military action being delayed by tedious debate. The Alliance. Culture and values. Cooperation, mutual aid, tolerance, and respect. The values that bind the Alliance systems also hold true on an interpersonal level. Just as the different worlds of the Alliance formally recognize one another's legitimacy and value, individuals are generally reluctant to show prejudice against others, and will band together to help those in genuine need. Diversity is strength. Members of the Alliance are not obliged to conform to what they consider the corporate saturation of federal culture, or the status-obsessed posturing of the Imperials. Individual systems are encouraged to preserve and celebrate their own cultural identities. This approach results in a rich variety of artistic, literary, and dramatic output. Free to speak, free to protest. One curious cultural constant across the Alliance member systems is the way the citizens indulge their freedom to complain. They can criticize their governments without fear of repression, and they frequently do so. Previous experience of exploitation has left many citizens cynical, but possessed of a certain mordant humor and a willingness to take life as it comes. The Alliance. Diplomatic relations. The Federation. Alliance attitudes to the Federation vary sharply, depending on whether one is asking about the Federation's government or its citizenry. The government is seen as a hidebound relic, unable to arrest its slow decline into decadence, but the general populace are much more compassionately viewed. An Alliance citizen, proud of his or her own emancipation, is likely to have a rather condescending view of a federal citizen. They are characterized as ignorant dupes, kept satiated by mass-market entertainment and branded consumer goods. This is not seen as their fault, however. On the contrary, It is widely held that the Federation and the corporate barons deliberately keep the people in this servile state. The Alliance is more interested in enticing federal systems to join its union, thereby winning the moral war, than in exacting vengeance for the wrongs of the past. There has been too much violence already. The Empire. To the Alliance, the Empire is anathema. With its monolithic culture, veneration of opulence, disdain for human rights and tolerance of slavery, it could not be further from the Alliance's values of mutual respect and freedom from exploitation. Yet, for all this, many Alliance members would rather deal with the Empire than the Federation. The common belief is that the Federation will always pretend to be something it is not. At least with the Empire, you know what you're dealing with. Most Alliance citizens
Raphael.
view the emergence of a progressive movement within the Empire with cynicism. Everyone knows that the Empire is incapable
You guys
of
have a good
changing its
chat.
ways. The
I'm
whole
just
imperial
scrolling through my
social
phone as I head to
is
the
an
star.
imitation of the past. But some in the Alliance, nevertheless, welcome the ascension of the first female emperor. The edifice may not be about to crumble, but such a profound change cannot be ignored. The Thargoids. Human Thargoid contact. The Thargoids are a non-human race with a history of hostility towards humanity. The first recorded encounter with a Thargoid ship took place in 2849, although earlier undocumented encounters are believed to have taken place. In the years that followed, contact with lone Thargoid vessels was intermittently reported. Humanity clashed with the Thargoids in the 32nd century, but details of the conflict remained scarce for many years, and it proved difficult to differentiate authentic accounts of Thargoid encounters from the sensation. Abandoned intergalactic naval reserve arm bases in 3303 did much to dispel the fog, however. The INRA, a joint federal imperial initiative established in 3193, was responsible for researching the Thargoids and developing technologies to counter their aggression. But the organization's lack of accountability meant that the details of its research did not come to light until years after its dissolution. Almost all of the reliable data concerning the Thargoids has been sourced from INRA facilities. This data, originally deemed highly confidential, was declassified in 3304, following a resolution from the federal government and an imperial decree. Some controversy over the backing and funding of the INRA remains, however. The Thargoids. Society. The INRA discovered that Thargoid society is organized into hives, with most Thargoids falling into three categories: queens, princesses, and drones. Queens function as reproducers, while drones serve to maintain a favorable environment for the rest of the hive. Thargoid hives can be vast, although it may be that some of the larger observed groups are in fact multiple, overlapping hives. Ultimately, little is known for sure. The average Thargoid queen is at least as intelligent as a human being, while the typical drone possesses a more rudimentary level of intelligence. Existing evidence suggests that queens have extremely long lifespans, living for hundreds,
I'm
even
exploring
thousands
and
of
I'm doing
years.
some good shit here.
The variable size of queens' neuroclips
That
suggests
it's,
this might be an indicator of age. Little is known about the precise nature of Thargoid reproduction.
oh
But it
god,
is
there's a
likely
lot
that
here.
queens can reproduce both sexually, with other queens, and asexually. It is thought
Alright,
that the latter method
it's
produces
gonna take a while.
drones, while the former produces a new queen. Analysis of Thargoid specimens led
Yeah,
some
head to the
INRA
star, get the
researchers to
scoop.
believe that a new queen, or princess, becomes a full queen only once it has produced drones of its own. Significantly, queens are believed to be single-sex. The Thargoids' ability to reproduce asexually means that their populations can expand incredibly quickly, but it is thought that they deliberately restrict the size of the populace so as to not to deplete all available resources. There is evidence to suggest that this is sometimes achieved by culling older drones.
So this is why I love Lakon right here, is the bubble cockpit.
Presumably due to the
Perfect
ease
for
with which they could be
exploration.
replaced. Indeed, a Thargoid queen appears to give no more thought to the loss of a drone than a human would an eyelash. The Thargoids. Communication. The belief that Thargoids were capable of some form of extrasensory communication
there you
was
go.
often
That's it.
cited in the early years of human-Thargoid interaction.
Obviously, it's no good for
Prior to the
combat.
discovery of INRA records, it was not fully understood. Professor Yuri
But yeah,
Anslow
for
of the INRA
exploration,
theorized that a Thargoid queen
absolutely
can
you want a
communicate with
cockpit like
drones in
this.
its hive via a spread-spectrum electronic signal, and can use this signal to control the drones, and even to share their sensory input. Studies of battlefield footage certainly suggest some kind of near-instantaneous communication among Thargoids, and the presence of low-level radio noise in areas occupied by Thargoids indicates that they do indeed communicate via short-range electronic signals. Professor Anslow went on to claim that a queen could effectively see and hear through its drones, but her contemporaries were
Oh, it is a bit, but
dismissing the
it takes a few seconds to learn, but yeah, a lifetime to master.
one of the galaxy's
And I would highly recommend,
Thargoids,
where is
so
it?
far as to denounce Anslow as a glory hound. Thargoids
I said, if you are going to get it,
staccato clicking noises
training. This is what you got to do here. Like you said, you got some scenarios here. You got training videos. You can do that on the browser, obviously, but
observed directing such noises at one another, albeit much less frequently. Professor Albert Tesreau, a founding member of the Joint Superpower Initiative,
so like I said, you've got everything here. You've got like advanced stuff here. You've got
and suggested that the sounds,
you know, combat, mining, docking and travel. That's always a key part. Now, scenarios here.
It is unclear
So
why the Thargoids would sometimes choose to communicate with each other vocally, given their capacity for extrasensory communication. Professor Anslow suggested that the sounds could be designed to intimidate enemies or opponents, noting that Thargoids often produce them prior to combat. Thargoid ships have been observed emitting a complex array of sounds, and in some cases subtly changing color. The exact meaning of these behaviors has not been determined, but they appear to correspond to different emotional states. What is not known is if these sounds are produced by the pilot and amplified by the ship, or emitted by the ship
but yeah,
itself.
if you want to do that,
If the sounds originate
you've got to get into the,
it would
you know,
suggest some
training
kind of
and
physiological
challenges.
connection between pilot and vessel. Given the sophistication of Thargoid bioengineering, however,
So just keep
it is
that in mind if
possible
you're going to get
the
this game.
sounds come from the ship itself,
It takes a
and
few
the
seconds to
Thargoid
learn.
ships are able to feel
Well,
and
not
communicate
really
to a
seconds,
limited
but
degree.
you know, it
The
takes
hulls
like,
of Thargoid ships
you know, now what I
typically
learn a
raise
lifetime to
one
master.
of several symbols, the meaning of which is unknown. Some have theorized that they could denote membership of a particular familial group, or possibly be an indicator of rank.
And obviously you can see here, I'm just
The Thargoids.
I'm an explorer.
Human
That's it.
understanding of Thargoid physiology is far from complete, but recovered INRA data has offered some insights into their nature. INRA records describe the average Thargoid as physically larger than a human
setup.
being.
And I truly do love this game. Like,
Thargoid biology is carbon-based, using an RNA-like encoding for biological information, but Thargoid chemistry is based on ammonia rather than water. Consequently, while Thargoids can comfortably tolerate environments as cold as -80 degrees Celsius, they cannot withstand environments warmer than 45 degrees Celsius for long. According to notes compiled by Dr. Peregrine Hennig, an INRA researcher, Thargoids can survive for a significant time in the vacuum of space without apparent discomfort, and can tolerate radiation and extreme cold for far longer than a human.
yeah, it took a while, but
The Thargoids. Vulnerabilities.
I don't know, let's see
In
if we got any
3151, the INRA developed a biological weapon
anything
known as the
around
mycoid
in this
virus
particular
used against
part of the
Thargoids.
system.
The virus was the
No.
result of an accidental discovery made by an INRA researcher, who noted that a particular strain of fungus was found
Oh,
to
hot
thrive
damn.
in
There's a lot of
Thargoid
shit here.
vessels
All right.
and appeared to be digesting the material of which the ship was made. The INRA refined the fungal strain and began experimenting on living Thargoids in their spacecraft. The mycoid proved to have deleterious effects on both,
Right.
leading to the swift
I'm gonna
elimination
start with
of
hip
the Thargoids
1,
active in
2, then
human
3, then
occupied space
3A.
at the
So
time.
start.
It is widely assumed
D1.
that since the last human-Thargoid conflict, the Thargoids have developed an immunity to the mycoid virus. The Thargoids. Starships. In terms of structure and function, Thargoid vessels are radically different from anything produced by humanity, and are able to navigate hyperspace in ways that are not fully understood. They are also at least partly organic, meaning that they can self-repair or heal over time.
Oh, yeah.
Ship function in general,
Well, you know, that's why,
restorative ability in particular,
like I said, I do wish I had a
should be
PC,
dependent
but,
upon the
you know, I'm happy on
so-called
console,
Thargoid
you know,
heart,
like,
a biomechanical
you know, the
organ
legacy
found
server
in
and
varying quantities in
the
different Thargoid ships.
.00000000001% of getting griefed. I'm happy with
Although
that.
they can also be targeted and damaged with appropriate weaponry. They are highly corrosive, however, and require special containers for safe transport. Thargoid vessels that have sustained combat damage exhibit scar-like patterns. Given that Thargoid technology is sophisticated enough for such damage to be repaired, it follows that the Thargoids might deliberately choose to preserve these scars. INRA logs document an encounter with a Thargoid mothership many times larger than other Thargoid craft, against which the mycoid virus was successfully deployed, although no such vessels have been reported in recent times. The Thargoids. Structures. Dozens of planets in human-occupied space are peppered with Thargoid barnacles, biological resource extractors that convert minerals into meta-alloys, a key component in the creation of Thargoid vehicles and technology. Theories that these barnacles have been genetically engineered by the Thargoids have yet to be verified. Larger structures, referred to as Thargoid surface sites, have also been discovered. These sites typically consist of a spiral-shaped structure, nestling within a shallow crater, beneath which lies a series of tunnels. At the heart of this subsurface network is a device that, once activated, emits a holographic star map. The sites are patrolled
Yeah, well, I'm obviously on PS5, so I got a,
scavengers.
I don't know, PS5 is absolutely ridiculously easy to stream on.
The Thargoids. War with the Guardians.
There we go.
Scan complete.
Logical records
Human
have
signal in there.
extinct,
Alright.
non-human
But yeah, so
civilization as the Guardians experience
on the
conflict
PS5 controller,
1,000
I said I'll actually turn my camera on so I can
logs recovered from Guardian
show
sites
this.
indicate that the Thargoids were the aggressor in this conflict, having seeded Guardian space with biomechanical constructs used for resource extraction long before the emergence
There
of
we
the
go.
Guardian civilization. The Thargoids apparently
Look
believed
at this one, hang on a second.
to uncontested
Get
dominion
up to the TV so I can show you.
the Guardians attempted to communicate with the Thargoids and reach a compromise, but
Where
without
am I?
success.
There.
Over the
Okay,
course of
so
the conflict, the Guardians
that's the one
developed new
here.
technologies
Alright, so
to
this is
gain
the
advantage
share
over
button,
the
or well,
Thargoids.
the create
These
button, I believe it's
technologies
called
were
now.
apparently successful,
And
forcing the
you press
Thargoids to
this.
abandon their offensive.
Boom. Press that. And yeah, it'll get you to, you know, you can take photos, you can sort of
Thargoids
record
do not
clips,
attack indiscriminately, and their choice of target
all that stuff,
shows them
and
to be
yeah, it'll let you
highly
broadcast
intelligent.
to
They've
YouTube.
also
Just got to
conducted
hook up,
targeted strikes
connect
on religious
your
facilities and attacked
PlayStation
pilots
Network
carrying
account
Thargoid items in their
with
cargo
your
holds,
YouTube account.
indicating that they know they are being studied and want to halt the process. But despite their
And,
evident intelligence,
yeah, there you go.
they appear to be completely
Alright,
uninterested in
let's,
meaningful communication. The engineer Ram Tun,
Oh yeah,
who
like I
has
said,
extensively
Sony
researched
is
the
amazing at
Guardians
this
and
stuff,
their
man.
war with the Thargoids, holds the view that
You know,
Thargoid aggression
I
is a
set
product
2
of
onto
territorialism.
3 after
They seed
that.
an area with barnacles, thus laying claim to it, and return,
Alright,
sometimes many centuries
there we
later,
go.
to harvest the extracted resources.
Get myself into the
Any
middle of the
life form
camera.
advanced enough to compete with them for the
I
territory
haven't had the camera on
is
for
treated
quite a
as an
while.
enemy and summarily attacked. Professor Palin concurs
Oh, yeah.
with this view, adding that the Thargoids
No, you'd think I would be as well. Like I said, I'm 42 years old. You'd think I wouldn't be up to date, but no, I'm happy with what I got. Like I said, it's, I do sound like I'm shilling for Sony here, and I probably am, because I am a very loyal PlayStation user. I've had every generation of PlayStation since the PS1. So, but yeah, like Sony just makes it so easy to stream and to game, and like I said, their logo, you know, for the players isn't just empty words. It is like what they, the motto they live by, really. I mean,
data logs recovered from these sites have allowed humanity to compile a remarkably detailed picture of Guardian society. The Guardians. Early history. The Guardian Society originally consisted of groups of pack hunters who banded together for mutual protection before organizing themselves into clans. Even at this stage, the Guardians were highly intelligent, and they developed sophisticated hunting strategies that quickly saw them become their planet's apex predator. The Guardians' nascent
Surface scanned by 50%.
civilization consisted of two discrete ethnic
Surface scan complete.
Oh, geez. Oh, 54.
one based primarily in the south of the planet and one in the north. As these groups expanded, they began to encroach on each other's territory, leading to a conflict that quickly blossomed into civil war. The Northern Clan, despite being the smaller of the two groups, overcame their enemies swiftly and with
Whoop,
minimal
wrong
bloodshed,
way.
while
So,
bringing the entirety of the Guardian civilization under their leadership. In the centuries that followed, the Guardian society developed rapidly. Despite their warlike instincts, the Guardians possessed a remarkable capacity for collaboration and compromise. Their willingness to defer immediate gains in favor of lasting societal benefits allowed them to establish a stable, mutually cooperative society that was to remain peaceful and prosperous
and then
for
3A
thousands
after
of
that one.
years.
Yep.
The Guardians. Technological
3 and
era.
then 4 and then
Although
4A.
the Guardian
Gotcha.
society
Alright.
was in many ways a model of social equilibrium, the Guardians
54.
were nevertheless at the
Well,
mercy
yeah,
of
like I said, if you
issue.
a starter console, yeah, PS5
As
would
their
be
civilization
fantastic.
grew
It's
and
easy
the
to
amount
hook
of
up,
available land
but-
and resources dwindled, the Guardians set
and the
their
control
sights
work,
on
by the way,
interplanetary
is
colonization. By this time,
perfectly-
the Guardians had
perfectly
developed a
designed for
rudimentary form of space travel.
3 hands. Like, look at
As
that.
the
That
pressures
is
of
amazing that it
overpopulation became
can.
more acute, the
like-
rate of technological progress accelerated, and the Guardians in perfect starships were soon supplanted by fast, powerful spacefaring vessels. In the centuries that followed, the Guardian civilization expanded rapidly, eventually coming to occupy a region equal to that inhabited by present-day
Oh
humanity.
shit! All right, that
The
yeah,
Guardians'
that'll
major
work.
development was the creation of an interstellar
Oh, that'll work a bit for you.
known as the Monolith Network. In addition to functioning as a comprehensive cultural archive, the network allowed those connected to it to freely and instantaneously share knowledge and ideas.
I said I
The connection to the network was dependent on the
genuinely
use of
have
new
so much fun with
minerals,
this game.
and some of the Guardians were uneasy about this fusion of biological and non-biological. The Guardians. War with the Thargoids. Tens of thousands
Oh
of years
god,
earlier,
yeah,
when the
I remember
Guardians
I
were
remember
still a novel
CNC.
spacefaring race, a group of Thargoids entered what would later become Guardian space, looking for new
And that was the
systems to
height
colonize.
of graphics
In
back in the
addition to
day.
earmarking several systems containing ammonia worlds, they prepared a number of planets for occupation by seeding them with barnacles. These genetically modified constructs were designed to extract
Surface scanned by 50%.
resources from the planet and transform them into resources more
Surface scan complete.
useful to the Thargoids. For the Thargoids, seeding a planet with barnacles was an important step in preparing an area for occupation. The Thargoids did not return to these systems for thousands of years, and when they did, they discovered that a new race had occupied them, the Guardians. The Thargoids promptly attacked, due to their innate territorialism. The Guardians responded with a partial retreat, but they also started trying to find ways to
Surface scanned by 50%.
communicate with the Thargoids,
Surface scan complete.
hoping to determine the cause of their aggression and perhaps negotiate a truce. After considerable effort, they succeeded in acquiring sufficient
Oh, that was
understanding
easy.
of the Thargoids' language to determine the invaders' agenda, but they were unable to convince the Thargoids they bore them no ill will, and the Thargoids were unshakable in their belief that they
Yeah,
must
just a
repel any
smidge.
race that posed a potential
Yeah, I mean,
threat. The
like,
Guardians were
oh,
left with no choice
God, you
but
know,
to
I
defend
remember
themselves militarily.
GTA
At first,
1
they
and
deployed
thinking that
soldiers,
was like
but they
the
quickly
pinnacle
realized that
of
drones and
graphics,
other
you know what I mean?
mechanized defenses would be more effective against such a
Or,
physically
you know, going back
formidable
to when I was
enemy. Within a
about,
relatively short period of time, the Guardians'
geez, I must have been
war
about
machines became highly
4 or 5 years
sophisticated,
old.
able to recognize
The
Thargoid
Atari
engineering
2600.
and to operate entirely independently. Similarly,
I remember
the
thinking that
Thargoids'
was the
biomechanical
greatest thing of all
technology was
time.
engineered to identify anything of Guardian
You know,
origin.
and
To this day,
PS1 came
many
in,
millions
blew
of
me
years
away.
after the
Like,
Guardians disappeared, Guardian artifacts are still able to recognize
I just
Thargoid
remember
technology,
generation after
and
generation
Thargoid
of
technology still
console
reacts
and
negatively to the
like
presence of Guardian
consistently being
artifacts.
blown away each
Guardians'
time.
war machines felt no fear, fatigue, or uncertainty. The Thargoids, meanwhile, had entered Guardian space unprepared for a protracted
Oh
military
God!
campaign, and ultimately
My cousin had the
forced
Commodore
retreat.
64 with the old
For the
tape,
Guardians, this was
tape you
cause
had to
for
put in
celebration.
to play it.
But many still harbored doubts about the rapid rate of technological progress. Doubts
Oh
that the
God, I
development
remember
of
that. My cousin
sophisticated
had that.
military hardware had done nothing to alleviate. The Guardians. Final era. For decades, the Guardians have been experimenting with artificial intelligence, but the creation of the Monolith Network and the knowledge sharing
Yeah, that was
dramatically accelerated the rate of
something else
progress.
with the Commodore.
Soon, the Guardians' experiments bore fruit, resulting in the first fully sentient machines. These constructs were seen as a means to further enhance the Guardians' technological mastery, and were integrated into various aspects of their society. New neural implants were developed that connected the Guardians with both the constructs and the Monolith Network in a symbiotic circle.
Well, you can go for the efficiency target if you want to. I'm not really for that.
Had always venerated nature, and many saw this new paradigm
Oh,
as a
yeah.
reversion of the natural order.
Surface scanned by 50%.
A schism emerged between the nature-worshipping traditionalists and the technologically minded progressives. A schism that widened with alarming speed. Efforts were made to diffuse the rising tension, but the traditionalists felt irrevocably alienated
Surface scan complete.
by the rapid rate of
geologicals
change. The
here.
constructs and the Monolith Network became scapegoats for all manner of social ills, and the traditionalists began to clamour for a return to simpler times. Ultimately, the ideological divergence proved insurmountable, and a second civil war erupted, quickly engulfing most of the Guardian star systems. In its early stages, the war was fought primarily by soldiers, but within a decade,
Surface scanned by 50%.
and after significant loss of life, most of
Surface scan complete.
the fighting was conducted remotely. The progressives
let me
fought their
see.
enemies with automated war machines, while the
I don't think I'm that
traditionalists
far
relied
out of the
mostly
bubble.
on biological weapons. The internecine conflict
No, I'm not that
raged
far
for
out of
over
the bubble.
100 years, bringing the Guardian civilization to its knees and retarding further social development. The increasingly zealous traditionalists devoted most of their resources to honoring the dead, exacerbating the problem. As the Guardian society declined,
Well, those are all.
most withdrew into fortified settlements. Meanwhile, the artificially intelligent constructs were horrified by the destruction unfolding
Where's the bubble?
around
There it
them.
is.
Extrapolating
Yeah, I'm only
from the
just
current
outside the
situation,
bubble.
they determined that even if peace was restored, the Guardians would never be able to transcend their violent natures. They decided that the only way to preclude further violence, while giving the constructs
Where I'm heading to.
society the best possible chance of survival, was to destroy what remained of the Guardian civilization. By this time, the constructs had been given complete control of the Guardians' munitions and automated war machines. Their attack, when it came, was swift and merciless. The strikes were executed with a precision that only a machine race could accomplish. The Guardians were utterly destroyed. The Guardians. Physiology. The Guardians were a bipedal race, and the typical Guardian was taller and more slender than the average human. They had small round eyes, a vestigial nose, and 4 digits on each hand. Their vision was superior to that of humans, while their sense of smell was poorer. Their senses of hearing and touch were roughly equivalent to our own. The Guardians had pinkish red skin, but there was some variation among ethnic groups, with tones ranging from pale pink to deep crimson. They also had serrated bony ridges on the outside of their
Oh, yeah, this one's a
forearms,
bit.
which were
Yeah,
used
it's talking
as
about
weapons
1,200
during their
light
early
years.
history, when they were still semi-primitive pack hunters.
Yeah.
The Guardians' environmental needs were broadly similar to those
Okay, mainly because I'm
humans.
just trying to get out of
Their
the,
homeworld was warmer and had lower
leave
gravity
the
than
bubble,
most Earth-like
which I
worlds.
have, which is good.
And when they began to colonize
All
our
right,
planets,
where
they
am I?
typically favored ones that shared these qualities. The Guardians had 2 genders
Oh, wait,
and
no.
reproduced sexually.
Sorry.
Procreation was a matter of personal choice, but each individual was obligated to be a
5,
parent
sorry.
at least once in their life to ensure the continuation of their genetic line. The average gestation period was around 300 days, and infants were effectively helpless for a period after birth.
So, like I said, I'm just outside the bubble and
Infants were raised in
heading further out.
crashes rather than by their parents, in keeping with the collaborative philosophies that underpinned Guardian society. The Guardians. Society. The Guardians' social
5 and
constructs
5A.
were key not only to their rapid development, but also to the stability that defined the halcyon days of their civilization. Although the Guardians had a natural tendency towards collaboration, it was not until the end of the First Civil War that this tendency
as I'm saying,
had a
this is
measurable impact on their
why I think
society.
Lakon is
The
the best
social
ship for
reorganization that
exploration.
followed included the creation of
It's the bubble.
statutes that defined not only individuals' rights, but also their
Right out the front, you get that
responsibilities to each other.
unobstructed view,
As the
like
Guardian
you see.
society developed, further laws were passed that required individuals
All the
to
way around, you
participate
get
in socially progressive activities, from caring for the young
like perfect
to
views.
conducting scientific research. These responsibilities were supported by the state, which made education and information freely available to all.
Why I decided to leave
For
Los
most of their
Santos
history, the Guardians
to
had
space.
no
I don't know. I just felt
but the creation of the
I don't know, I just
network precipitated
felt the need to just
emergence of an ancient
explore.
religion that decried the veneration of technology. Although this religion had its roots in the Guardians' long
I felt the call of
reverence for the
space
natural world,
beckoning me.
it quickly became a radical movement, violently opposed to the use of neural implants and other advanced technologies. Ultimately, however, this new religion was to endure for only a short period. Its existence
Surface scanned by 50%.
cut short by the destruction of the Guardian society. The Guardians. Technology. The Guardians' pre-industrial history was, in many ways,
Surface scan.
similar to that of the human race, with the development of tools and agriculture
Yeah.
proving central to their development. But one respect in which they differed was in their understanding of biological engineering. The practice of selective breeding in order to eliminate or promote certain genetic traits began before the First Civil War. And as the Guardian Society progressed, their skill as genetic engineers developed in step. After the war, the Guardians developed the ability to enhance their immune systems to guard against infection, and engineered specific microorganisms to eliminate biological threats. Genetic manipulation also played a part in prenatal care, which involved the removal of hereditary diseases and other undesirable conditions prior to birth. The Guardians were an ecologically conscientious people who assiduously avoided the use of rock
Surface scanned by 50%.
and fossil fuels. Their first spacecraft lacked any form of internal
Surface scan complete.
propulsion and were fired into space with electromagnetic launchers. Pilots and passengers were cocooned inside bubbles of breathable gel, which
2,
protected them
3,
from
4,
G-forces of launch and doubled as
5.
hibernation pods during long journeys. When it came to warfare, the Guardians relied initially on the blade-like protrusions.
Oh,
on
we
their
got
forearms,
geologicals. Hang on.
and
Whoa,
later on
whoa.
simple
Slow it
weapons
down there, my
like
friend.
spears and bows. As they entered the technological era, they developed electromagnetic projectile weapons, utilizing the same technology they used to launch their
Orbital flight engaged.
first spacecraft. They also developed extremely effective shields, capable of protecting entire
Hull integrity compromised.
Of course.
cities, and even of withstanding orbital bombardment. At that time, however, large-scale conflict was virtually unheard of, and it was not until the conflict with the Thargoids that further military innovations were made. The Guardian's
Now, I'm going to need night vision
was
for
fought
this.
principally with bespoke biological weapons employed by the traditionalists and automated war machines used by the progressives. The shields that protected the Guardian cities were unable to
Yeah, the-
resist these new weapons, forcing many of the Guardians to withdraw into heavily fortified
All right.
settlements.
Now we got about
The
7
Guardians'
minutes
most
to...
significant technological achievements were unarguably the creation of the monolith network and the development of artificial intelligence. The use of neural implants to connect the Guardians with their creations could have ushered in a whole new era of scientific and technological discovery, but unfortunately, these innovations were to lead only to the Guardians' destruction. The Guardians. Language. The Guardians shared a single language, with only minor regional variations. And even after they colonized other planets, they continued to share a common tongue. The Guardians had three primary forms of communication: a spoken language, a gestural language, and a written language. Their spoken language emerged first, followed by a gestural language that allowed them to communicate silently while hunting. This sign language formed the basis of their written language. Consequently, while their written and gestural languages correlated closely, their spoken language was largely distinct. The Guardian's spoken language was used principally to communicate emotional concepts and played a central role in social bonding, while their written language was used mainly to communicate formal and practical ideas. Significantly, their written language was logographic, meaning the words and phrases were represented by single characters. The Guardians. Human Guardian contact. In 3301,
Oh,
the
yeah?
federal presidential vessel, Starship One, suffered catastrophic drive failure during a tour of Frontier systems, resulting in the ship's destruction.
Well, Shadow of the Colossus is
Yasmina
probably,
Halsey, at that
you know, one of
time
those great
federal
games. I can't
president,
remember.
was left drifting
Well, I
in
haven't
an
played it, but I've seen a couple of
unconscious.
playthroughs, and
During this
yeah,
period
that
of
scene where he
stasis,
just walks
Halsey
through
believed she was visited by
out
transdimensional
into the
beings
desert, and
of
it's just this
extraordinary
massive
intelligence and
expanse.
compassion. Later, when she was rescued and revived, she was left with the conviction that this experience had been real and not merely a hallucination. Halsey proceeded to experience visions of mysterious alien worlds and cities, dense metropolises full of activity and life. She shared these visions with the rest of humanity, prompting explorers to set off in
Right,
search
so,
of these undiscovered
I might look at it if
This
it's on
led to the
PlayStation
discovery
Plus.
of the
I might be able to
first
download it,
in the
and I'll
Sinew
give it a run through.
D11102 system. The fact that these sites were devoid of life led to speculation that Halsey had seen the Guardian worlds not as they are, but as they had been. In the months that followed, several further sites were found.
Drive charging.
The engineer Ram Tar started researching the Guardians and eventually succeeded in developing a decryption algorithm that could decode Guardian data, leading to a much deeper understanding of their lost civilization.
Yeah, I said, well, when I end the
Other
stream, I'll have a
engineers
look and
leveraged Ram Tar's discoveries
see if it
to
is
develop Guardian human technology.
on PlayStation Plus, and if it is, yeah, I'll definitely download it and have a go and stream it.
Our species has been banding together to fight the outsider since we lived in caves. We stand against the lawless, the invaders, and the monsters.
Oh, there we go. Night vision is kicked
And
in.
we're proud to do it. But you have to remember one thing. Nobody in the history of conflict ever saw himself as a monster. Everyone believes they're the hero of their own story. If you can't understand that, if you can't stand in the enemy's shoes, even for a second, and ask yourself,
That is absolutely
why
true.
he thinks he needs to kill you,
Very staunch PlayStation loyalist
then you don't
during
know
the
what it means
the
to
console
be a
war.
soldier.
Aidan Tanner, addressed to Federal Cadets, 3298. Admiral Aidan Tanner is a senior officer in the Federal Navy. He has served for more than 4 decades, and in 3303...
So I don't want to
was
check
given
the
significant
geological signals.
responsibility in the struggle
Well,
against the
hopefully,
Gargoyles. First being
I'm sort of
appointed
hoping that
Chief of
it's,
Federal
you know,
Security,
like
and later as a Chief
volcanic
Military
action.
Liaison for the
I know.
Cross-Superpower Initiative, Aegis. He is widely respected, even outside of federal space, for his conscientious and level-headed approach to conflict. Born in 3254, Tanner was expected to follow in the footsteps of his authoritarian father by becoming a doctor, but instead enlisted in the Federal Navy, along with a group of friends, in what he would later describe as a rash act of adolescent rebellion that I have not once regretted. Tanner's father died in 3277. The two never resolved their estrangement. Tanner's early naval career was anything but distinguished. Known to his comrades in arms as Spoonie for his habit of eating directly from food packets instead of using plates, he was distinguished more by his irreverent sense of humor than his commentator that satirized several senior officers, including Sergeant Burke Hazel, who was offended and deeply hurt. Hazel had taken a personal interest in Tanner and had encouraged him to persist when the cadet had struggled with basic training. Tanner's defense that he had been trying to improve morale was rejected, and although he was allowed to continue his service, he was marked as a potential insubordinate, a label that would later return to haunt him. Tanner's chief instructional officer, Commander Myra Dunstock, warned him to take military life more seriously. She took Tanner to a refugee facility, an experience he would later characterize as showing him what the military is there to prevent. Tanner recognized a last chance when he
this
saw
looks
it,
good.
discarded his role as camp comedian, and threw himself into his training with unprecedented energy. The decisive incident in Tanner's career was the Autolycus mutiny of 3271. At the time, Tanner was serving as chief gunnery officer on board the FDN Autolycus, a Farragut-class battlecruiser, under the command of Captain Jaden Horn. The ship was dispatched to restore order at Cold Harbor Station, which had been occupied by rebels following a descent into civil disorder. Captain
there's
Horn's
no
orders were to
volcanics
monitor
here,
the station and await reinforcements. But when contact with the station was abruptly lost, he became convinced an
these look
attack was
okay.
imminent. Surveillance footage later showed Horn acting in an increasingly erratic fashion. He screamed orders, slurred his words, and struck an ensign for making a minor mistake. Seeing a group of civilian ships preparing to leave the station, Horn ordered Tanner to open fire, convinced they were about to ram the Autolycus. Tanner refused to obey the order, claiming it was unlawful and that Horn was unfit to command. In the time it took for a furious Horn to have Tanner thrown in the brig, the escaping ships had jumped out of the system. At Tanner's court-martial, Horn tried to use his history of rebelliousness against him, but an explosive series of revelations followed. The escaping ships had been carrying evacuees, and the station's apparent silence was in fact due to Horn himself, who had disabled shipborne communications without telling his crew. Horn, who it would later emerge had been suffering from lexalamine-induced psychosis,
Wait, what?
committed suicide.
Oh shit, I don't have his... Oh man.
Fighter and detonating
Thought I had my scarab.
Tanner was exonerated, receiving a commendation from President Antonia Madison for his actions. Individuals. Aisling Duval.
Alright.
My grandfather had an heirloom he used to keep in our winter palace.
Landing gear retracted.
It was a priceless marble statuette of one of our ancestors standing with his foot on a woman's neck, while she looks up at him in fear or adoration, probably both. I loathed it. It was commissioned to commemorate some victory or other, but that wasn't the point of the thing. The message was clear, and it's the same one I've heard all my life. Deep down, the people we dominate are happy to be dominated. When I was 6 years old, I smashed it. The servants came running. My father stormed down the stairs in his gown. He asked if it was an accident. There was such a strange look in his eyes. I knew that if I said yes, nobody would argue. Nothing more would be said. But I didn't. I stamped my foot and said, "No, Daddy. I did it on purpose." It's the same with tradition. The people who pass it on think it's precious. They expect you to cherish it and pass it on in turn.
Frameshift drive charging.
Alright, anyway.
But what they think doesn't matter.
Back to what I was doing before, because I thought I had my SRB.
Because the responsibility rests with you. If you know it's wrong, then you have to smash it. On purpose.
So, alright.
Aisling
Well,
Duval. A fireside chat with Serena, 3301. Princess Aisling Duval, born in 3276, is a prominent member of the imperial royal family. The eldest child of the infamous Prince Harold, she had a troubled upbringing. Her father was notorious for his hedonistic lifestyle, while her mother, entertainer Imogen Eccentrica Gabriellini,
well, I gotta get that SRB again, so.
after Aisling's birth. The autopsy identified the cause of death as an overdose of purple sunflake. an obscure and expensive narcotic, the conspiracy theorists insisted that she was murdered to remove an embarrassment to the royal family. Aisling has indicated that she is aware of these rumors, but has never commented on them. Despite living a life of great
Frameshift drive charging.
privilege, Aisling has publicly embraced the cause.
I'm going to head back to
an
Seoul.
outspoken opponent of slavery, something that has made her the target of fierce criticism from more traditionalist imperialists. But despite this criticism, Aisling is a popular figure with a widespread media presence. Her campaigning has brought definite benefits to many of the poorest in imperial society and gone some way towards easing tensions between the Empire and the Federation. Her critics, however, dismiss her as a puppet, doing the bidding of a shadowy circle of advisors. They claim there is no underlying coherence to Aisling's policies. To them, she is a naive, even sentimental child. Without the necessary experience.
So now I've got to go back home to get my toys and then come back.
Always conscious of how her activism is affecting her brand. Significantly, the most savage of Aisling's critics and the staunchest of her defenders agree on a counterpoint to this, that her apparent vacuity is nothing but a front, carefully created in collusion with the very advisors whom others believe are
Sweeping complete.
What, the Blob game? Which one's that one?
The People's Princess, they argue, is exceptionally good at being underestimated. Following the death of Hengist Deval in 3301, Aisling was considered by many to be a viable contender for the imperial throne. As Aisling was born out of wedlock, however, and her father was removed from the line of succession on the ground
Frameshift drive charging.
of mental incapacity, Orissa Lavinie
Blob
Deval
game.
was deemed to have the stronger claim.
Oh, what, you mean Fall Guys?
Individuals
With the beans?
Albert Tesro,
I suppose I could go back to...
I may not be religious, but I still have faith. Not the kind my parents have. In fact, I don't think their desperate devotion can even be called faith. The point of faith is that it's tested.
There's no...
And if you insist
I
that
cannot...
your beliefs
System scan complete.
are above criticism
I
or
cannot,
analysis like the star cults do, you're refusing to allow your faith to be tested at all. What do I have faith in? The fundamental sanity of the universe, I suppose. I don't believe in absolute evil, only in the iniquity that emerges when understanding fails. I believe intelligent life will naturally tend towards cooperation
Frameshift drive charging.
rather than conflict, not because there's a higher power guiding our decisions, but because that's simply the most logical course.
That's a Class G.
And
Alright,
yes,
cool. I can scoop
our
this one.
recent experiences with the Thargoids have tested that faith.
God, the sound of this in the headphones is beautiful.
Albert Tesro. Professor Albert Tesro is an imperial scientist, an affiliate of the Achenar Research Council, and a founding member of the Joint Superpower Initiative Aegis, which was established in August 3303 to investigate the Thargoid menace. She currently serves as Aegis's head of research.
I've only got 2 jumps until I get to my system, so that's good.
Biological parents were members of the Besmeratu cult, an isolationist group secreted within a sealed compound that believed itself to have been chosen for salvation by non-human beings. The cult's charismatic leader, Anton Hotep, claimed humanity had been under the protection of these beings for millennia, that he was their cosmic messiah, and that only the believers would be saved from the coming apocalypse. In support of these claims, he often produced alien artifacts, allegedly sourced from archaeological digs that other cult members were never permitted to examine closely. Alba was marked as a troublemaker from an early age, due to her heretical belief in rationality and the scientific method. She was formally banished from Besmeratu after she sabotaged the air purifying system, forcing the compound to call for help from outsiders, and thus humiliating Hotep. After her story became public knowledge, she was adopted into the household of Senator Olivia Tesro of Achenar and awarded a scholarship to study at Grand Imperial, alongside the children of the nobility. She wrote her master's thesis on the potential uses of mathematics as a lingua franca between human beings and intelligent non-humans. She's passionately interested in
Fuel scoop incomplete.
meaningful discourse between species. Despite the counterfeit alien contact myths of her early life, or perhaps because of them, she's determined to do
Frameshift drive charging.
whatever she can to act as a bridge between human and non-human cultures. Individuals. Archon Delane.
I'll tell you, Delane is the most trustworthy cuss you could ever work with. Why? Because he always makes good on his threats. Anyone else tells you that they're gonna cut off your index fingers and hammer your sinuses with your own severed foot, you know it's just bluster. But if Delane tells you that, you know he'll do exactly what he says. To the letter. He wants people to be afraid of him, and that means he keeps his promises. You gotta respect the
Frameshift drive charging.
Mantle Hoek, arms trader. Archon Delane is the head of the Cumo crew, a powerful criminal syndicate. He refers to himself as the...
So yeah, I was only 4 jumps outside the bubble.
A title not
At least
recognized
4 jumps
by
away
any
from my
government.
home, so you know.
Delane's early life is not documented, and there are competing legends of his origin. Some believe he grew up in a drug den on one of the frontiers where he learned to fight. Other stories have him working as a bouncer in the brothel where he was born, or training as a grease monkey at an orbital shipyard that hosted clandestine arena fights after hours. What is certain is that Delane challenged and slaughtered the reigning pirate lord of the Cumo crew when he was only 15. The title of Pirate Lord is only transferred on the
there
death
we
of
go.
the incumbent, either to a nominated successor or to the victor of a ritual challenge. According to tradition, the Pirate Lord must honor any challenge to his leadership, regardless of who issues it, although the choice of weapons is left to him. In Delane's case, Pirate Lord Crab opted for a bare hands contest, a highly unusual choice. It has been suggested that Crab saw Delane as a weak target due to his albinism, unworthy of a Pirate Lord's personal attention. It is possible that Crab intended to give Delane a beating rather than kill him outright. If so, it was a fatal act of mercy. Footage of the fight shot by onlookers shows Delane deftly evading Crab's heavy blows, allowing the larger man to tire himself out before delivering a sudden jab to Crab's eye. Delane then battered Crab into submission, continuing to pummel the body until it was unrecognizable. The Cumo crew immediately split, dividing itself into those who saw Delane as a legitimate leader and those who refused to follow an unproven youth. The rift was soon closed, however, as Delane proved himself as capable a leader as he was a fighter. It became clear that Delane intended to establish not only his own reputation,
there's Earth.
but that of the crew. From then on, Delane crushed any dissent with the same uncompromising brutality he had shown to Crab. He took a zero-tolerance approach to the petty squabbles that had previously paralyzed the Cumo crew, and in doing so, turned what had been an anarchic band of opportunists into a lethally effective raiding force. United in purpose and more organized than ever before, the Cumo crew quickly became the terror of the Pegasus sector, absorbing lesser pirate gangs, raiding civilian stations with impunity, and taking over corporate facilities. In Delane's early years of many rival pirate lords demanded the right to one-on-one combat. Each of them convinced them.
Lakon, India, Mike, Papa. The Federation welcomes you, Commander. We'd be happy to serve you at this port.
They would be the
Access granted. Proceed to landing pad 387. You are go for automated docking.
and take
Enjoy
over
the
his
ride,
enviable
Commander.
criminal empire. Delane met his challenger in turn, agreed to their choice of weapons, and
Actually, you know what? I timed this
After the death
absolutely
of the pirate lord
perfectly.
Olvath, who Delane strangled with his own razor whip, there were
Because
no
I'm going to
further
end the stream.
challenges. Delane and his Cumo crew ruled
Well,
by
once I
fear.
get everything sorted, I'm
They
going to end the
opted
stream. So,
according
like I
to
said,
strict
thank you
rules. If a
so much
settlement
for
in
watching.
Cumo
Thank you
territory
so much for
was
liking. Thank you so much for
a Cumo
subscribing.
pirate to raid it risks
Ah,
being
it felt
stripped
good
of
to
his
just
rank, his
sit and
crew,
relax and
his
just
possessions, his
not worry
skill,
about getting
and his
griefed
life,
like you do in
according to the
GTA
severity
Online.
of the offense. These are the infamous 5 strips.
Sit back with
Instigated by Delane as a standard punishment across Cubo territory.
again, this is like one of my favorite games, and it's an amazingly beautiful game as well. Like,
Arissa Lavinie Duval.
I am a daughter, not just of the Emperor, but of the Empire. And I look upon our traditions and achievements with pride. I hold,
there we go.
as my forefathers
And
did, that to be born imperial is to receive the blessings of the universe.
beautiful.
That is the
Station facilities are at your disposal, Commander.
meaning.
Well, let's go and get
Ceremonial
the
wine tipped upon our newborn heads.
outfitting. That's the one I'm going to
Does
use.
this pride in our heritage make me
I'm going to get that
old-fashioned?
new scarab.
Some would say so. I know that there are those in my family who cannot bear the burden of rank and privilege without a chronic sting of guilt. But I ask that you look charitably upon those so ailing, as I do. After all, rebellion is the prerogative of adolescence. I ask that you reserve your anger for a worthier target. For those who acknowledge our traditions in public, but privately serve only their own corrupt interests. For those who exploit their ancestors' sacrifices,
Oh, well, it says
while
there's a-
holding our military in contempt. For all the petty, venal, spineless parasites in our very midst. I have sat with many such parasites, and for form's sake, I have masked
Okay,
my
why-
contempt. But that mask has served its purpose, and now I cast it aside. To the worms nestling so complacently in
Oh, how
the
do I
heart
sell it
of
so I can-
my beloved empire, I say this: we see you, and we are coming for you.
Arissa Lavinie Duval, private speech given at her post-coronation dinner. Arissa Lavinie Duval is the reigning emperor, having been appointed to the position by the Imperial Senate, and a direct descendant of the first emperor, Henson Duval. Her father was originally thought to be the late Prince Aristide de Lavinie, but Arissa's claim to be the illegitimate daughter of Emperor Hengist Duval has since been ratified by DNA testing. Arissa distinguished herself as a serving senator early in life. Unlike other senators who took their patron support for granted or left the work of intercession to a delegated representative, Arissa made a point of visiting and speaking directly with her patrons. Foremost among her concerns was how little scope for mobility the Empire offered. In theory, it was
There you
possible
go, finally.
to rise in rank, but in reality,
Alright.
power was hoarded.
Cool.
and
Well,
more
I said, well,
service
I'm out as well,
was
man, because, well, this is the end of the stream. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you so much for subscribing. Like I said, I had a blast today. Like I said, it was good just to explore, do my thing. Like I said, it's Friday, so I'm out for the weekend, but I'll be back on Monday. It'll be members only Monday, so yeah, you will have to purchase a membership if you do want to have a chat. It'll be, members only chat for members only Monday, obviously. But yeah, so until Monday, this has been your boy, Outdoor Cans 82, saying work hard, be good to each other. Love you guys. Bye.
Namely, that it was no worse than indentured servitude, and downright luxury.